What the United States government did was shameful, and I am sorry.
Imagine going to a doctor, trusting him to help you, only to find out, decades later, that you were being watched as you died, slowly, painfully, and no one ever planned to save you. This isn't some dark chapter from Nazi Germany. This happened in America, in Alabama, and the government ran it. This is the true, horrifying story of the Tuskegee experiment. The year was 1932. The Great Depression had torn through the country like a storm, and Black Americans, especially in the rural South, were hit the hardest. Jobs were gone. Food was scarce. Medical care, practically non-existent. In this part of Alabama, poverty was even more crushing. But then, a lifeline appeared, or so it seemed. The Tuskegee Institute, founded to uplift Black Americans through education and guidance. But then it became the site of one of the darkest chapters in U.S. medical history. During this time, the U.S. Public Health Service launched a medical study on Black men in Macon County, Alabama. The men were misled, never told the truth of what the experiment was about, and rooted in racist beliefs that Black people were biologically inferior. The experiment would take place and eventually continue for 40 years. Men from the U.S. Public Health Service came into town. White coats, clipboards, authority. They were offering free medical treatment to Black men suffering for what they called bad blood, a term used in the community for everything from anemia to fatigue to syphilis. Free rides, free meals, free burial insurance. It sounded like a blessing. In reality, it was a death sentence. What these men weren't told is that they would not be treated at all. The doctors had a different plan. You see, syphilis, untreated, ravages the body. It causes blindness, brain damage, and horrific, painful death. But back then, researchers didn't fully understand how the disease progressed over time. So instead of studying it in a lab, they decided to use real people, real men, real families. They began with 600 Black men, 400 with syphilis, and 200 without. And they lied to them. They told them they were being treated. Even when they weren't, they performed spinal taps, calling them special treatments, while giving them nothing but aspirin and placebos. And even worse, a remedy was already available. It was discovered in 1928 by Alexander Fleming. And by 1947, penicillin was found to be a reliable cure for syphilis. Did they rush to save these men? No. The doctors made a deliberate choice. Don't treat them. They wanted to see what would happen, how long the men would live, how their bodies would rot, even how syphilis would pass to their wives and to their children. This continued not for a year, not for 5, but for 40 years. It wasn't until 1972 that the nightmare was exposed. A whistleblower named Peter Buxton, a white man working inside the Public Health Service, he leaked the truth to the press. And when the story broke, America was horrified. Lawsuits followed. Congress held hearings. And the men, the survivors, they would finally get some of the justice they deserved. Because in that class action lawsuit that was filed, the federal government would settle and award the men and those affected approximately $10 million, which was to be split between them and 6,000 descendants of all the more than 600 subjects. But unbelievably, no one was ever criminally charged. By then, 128 men were dead. 40 wives had been infected. 19 children were born with congenital syphilis. But one of the key figures behind it all was Dr. Thomas Perrin Jr. He served as Surgeon General under President Franklin D. Roosevelt and was praised, even during segregation, for trying to close health gaps between Black and white Americans. But here's the darker truth. Perrin was also one of the architects of the Tuskegee study. Under his watch, the experiment expanded and continued. Even worse, he knew about and approved U.S. public health researchers deliberately infecting Guatemalan prisoners and mentally ill patients with syphilis without their consent all in the name of science. And yet, despite this legacy, no arrests, no charges. But he did get a building named after him at the University of Pittsburgh. And to this day, people are fighting to have his name removed. We'll see where that goes, I guess. But President Bill Clinton would issue a formal public apology in 1997 for the Tuskegee injustice.
The United States government did something that was wrong, deeply, profoundly, morally wrong. It was an outrage to our commitment to integrity and equality for all our citizens. To the survivors, to the wives and family members, the children and the grandchildren, I say what you know. No power on earth can give you back the lives lost, the pain suffered, the years of internal torment and anguish. What was done cannot be undone, but we can end the silence. We can stop turning our heads away. We can look at you in the eye and finally say, on behalf of the American people, what the United States government did was shameful.
The apology was watched via live feed by all 6 of the surviving subjects. But by then, the damage was already done. Sadly, we may never know the true number of men who died or were affected by this cruel experiment in Alabama, nor how many people outside the subject pool were infected. But the last surviving subject of the Tuskegee experiment was Ernest Hendon, who was part of the control group, but he died in January 2004 at 96. Yet, he did get to live a pretty long life despite what he was subjected to. But the troubled legacy of Tuskegee didn't end with him. A 2016 research paper shows that the Tuskegee experiment led to mass mistrust of medical professionals and the public health service. This in turn is estimated to have lowered the life expectancy of Black American men by up to 1.5 years in immediate years following the exposure to the experiment. The Tuskegee Syphilis experiment wasn't just a failure of science. It was a betrayal of trust. It fueled generations of distrust toward the medical establishment, distrust that still exists today. And maybe the most chilling part, every man who died in that experiment died with a smile on his face because he thought the government was helping him. He thought the doctors cared. He never knew he was part of the experiment. And if for no other reason, any fair-minded person might be able to understand just why there are communities in America, even in modern times, that have trouble trusting and believing in the actions and methods of the United States government. This is the Anything History Channel, where the truth isn't always clean, patriotic, or even forgivable, but it is real. If this shook you, share it, comment your thoughts, and subscribe, because this is just one of many dark truths they hope you never find out.